Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Entrepreneurs in a Game podcast. I'm Nina Cooke, and I am really thrilled to bring to you a really special guest today. His name is Omar Zenhom, and he's the co-founder and CEO of WebinarNinja. It was founded in 2014 and has over 1 million people who have attended a webinar on WebinarNinja, and it's been named as one of the fastest growing SaaS companies in 2018. Omar is also the host of the iTunes Best of 2014 podcast, the $100 MBA Show, with over 90 million downloads and over 1,300 episodes. The $100 MBA Show is ranked as a top business podcast in over 30 countries. Omar, a very warm welcome to the Entrepreneurs in a Game podcast.
It's great to be here, Nina. I love it.
Now, we're going to dive into mindset because you and I were just having a quick chat before we went on air to say that mindset is such a big part of being an entrepreneur, but it's sometimes overlooked because we're so busy chasing strategies and getting things done that we forget that really important part. So tell me about your mindset and how it's played a role in your success.
Yeah, I take a deep breath there because I'm a firm believer of this concept. I wasn't always a firm believer. I always was always been a doer, always been kind of like an action taker, kind of like fire, then aim. I forgot how it goes. What is it? Fire, shoot, aim, something like that. But the point is that I realized there were certain things that I was not accomplishing or not trying because of limiting beliefs that I had or stories I've told myself or just things I never questioned. And I think a good stage to be in or a good mindset to be in is to be mindful of that, to be mindful of the fact that a lot will be determined by your mindset. And in a lot of ways, I think a lot of people think mindset has nothing to do with emotion, but I think they go hand in hand because I really believe that, a lot of us, we make decisions based on how we feel in a moment, right? If you feel stressed out because we're working 16 hours a day and we have to make decisions constantly, those decisions are going to be influenced by the way we feel. So I'm constantly trying to be mindful of my mindset as I'm building my business, growing the business, leading my team. This is being an entrepreneur, starting a business is not as common as having a day job for a reason. It's tough. It's not easy. And I think the hardest thing about it is that you're constantly being reminded that where you want to go and who you want to be is not who you are today. And you're constantly reminded that you have to get better. You have to improve. You have to change. You have to kind of evolve. And if anybody's listening to this right now made any progress in the last few years and they're in their business and they're honest with themselves, it's because something happened where they changed, right? They changed who they are. They changed what they did. They changed their habits. They changed what they think about every day. And that's what produces change. So sometimes we forget, what got us success in the past. We always just kind of focus on what's not working and try to fix things rather than realizing, okay, what worked in the past? What changes did I make in the past that have led to success? So that's kind of what I try to remind myself every day.
That's fantastic. And I love what you said. Where you want to be is not where you necessarily are today. And we keep seeing a gap, don't we, between those two things. And that can feel like a very big gap and sometimes insurmountable. And how are we going to get there? And then we can get into this beating up phase that, we're not good enough and we're not as far enough as we want to be. How have you dealt with that gap from where you want to be to where you are now?
I think one of the most helpful things to do is to read biographies. Biographies of any kind of successful person. It doesn't have to necessarily be entrepreneurs. That helps. I've read the biography, of the big names of, Elon Musk and Steve Jobs and, leaders out in the business world. But even artists. One of my favorite books is Life in Parts by Bryan Cranston, who plays Walter White from Breaking Bad. And his journey as an actor and as a performer is very similar to an entrepreneur. Another really good read is Kevin Hart's book, I Can't Make This Stuff Up. I came in with no expectations, but his journey, his biography really shows you what you have to be willing to endure to become successful, right? And that is in every biography that I've read. It's not about the things it's not necessarily about like the things you have to do or the crazy innovations you have to come up with in order to be successful. A good example of this is Shoe Dog, which is Phil Knight, the founder of Nike's biography, where it's just 20 years of him eating glass. It's like, it's really hard. His life is not easy. And we all aspire to be as successful as somebody like Phil Knight, but we don't see the reality of what it takes to get there. And I think biographies that remind you of that. You read those biographies, you live through their lives or the span of their life, and you realize, wow, I have it pretty good. Like my problems are nothing in comparison to what they have to deal with or had to deal with. It just realigns your expectations. It realigns your perspective on what a successful person's life is like. You think it's all fancy cars and mansions maybe, but in reality, the road to those luxuries in life is really tough. And it just reminds you, and it just asks that question, that honest question: are you willing to go through some hardship in order to get where you want to go? And maybe the answer is no, but that's okay. At least you're honest with yourself. Maybe it's like, well, maybe not. Maybe I rather have a little less success or a little less fame or whatever it is, and not have to go through all those turmoils and tribulations, right? So I think biographies are a great way to kind of give you perspective. The other thing I would say that really has helped me is having friends in the space and business that are maybe going through the same things I am. Maybe they're a few years ahead of me. And it just allows me to get a fresh perspective. Maybe I can talk about some of the things that I'm going through, and they can say, yep, I went through that last year. It's never easy, and kind of give me at least the peace of mind that I'm going to come out the other end. It's going to be fine. And sometimes maybe some strategies to handle it mentally and emotionally as well. A lot of people don't talk about the emotional aspects of business. It's very, very tough on the emotions. Nicole and I, who's my partner in business and partner in life, we go through a lot in business and go through a lot and as a relationship. So it's very important for us to be mindful of the way our business is affecting our life, and our stress levels and our health in general. And are we taking enough breaks, and are we being affected in some way? So having people around you that can support you, that can console you, that can also maybe advise you. And I don't want to call them mentors. They could just be friends.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's so important, isn't it? Because it's quite a lonely journey. I know you have a partner who's there with you, but it can be a very isolating way of being, trying to figure it all out on your own. You said that you have strategies, emotional and mental strategies that can help you when times get tough. What sort of things helps you, those strategies?
I know this maybe sound a bit macabre, but one of the best strategies is to ask yourself, what's the worst that can happen? Like, what's the worst case scenario in this situation of stress? And you would be surprised by the answer, and you just play it out, and even play it out emotionally. Like, imagine that happened. Are you going to be okay? Most likely you will be okay. Most likely you're not going to starve. Most likely you'll still have a roof over your head. Most likely you'll be able to recover, if you just play out the worst case scenario. Now that you have that and you kind of gone through that, you realize, okay, there's a good chance that that's going to happen. Another thing that I like to do, especially when we make decisions, because sometimes this happens because of a decision that you made in your business, is before you make a decision on something, ask yourself, what would happen if this went wrong, right? So say, for example, I make a decision on a new manager. And I ask myself, what if I make the wrong hire? What's the worst that can happen? And then why would that happen? Why would I make that bad hire? Oh, probably because I rushed the hiring process, or maybe I didn't check references, or maybe and none of this happened yet. You haven't even looked at a CV yet, right? But the point is that it allows you to kind of look out for things that may cause you to make a mistake in the first place, to kind of preempt the stress. So those are two strategies I like to do. The other thing is to realize that at the end of the day, the most important thing that you value in life, or things you value in life, need to be clear. So if that's your family, if that's your health, if that's your well-being, I have an uncle where his number one value metric is being in a good mood. So if anything puts him in a bad mood, like he gets a phone call from a friend that always complains or vents, he just hangs up. Like, I know that sounds selfish and ridiculous, but that's my uncle. That's who he is, right? But that's his value metric. That's what he values in life. So you got to be clear on that, like what's important to you. And once you know that, you need to understand that you need to prioritize that. No one's going to prioritize that for you. So if spending quality time with your significant other is a value to you, and you say that and you really believe that, then let me look at your calendar. Are you taking time off on the weekends to go for brunch? Are you spending a week here and a week there away for vacation? If not, then you're full of it. Or you're just not prioritizing what's important. Then you're asking for trouble, right? Then you're just asking to feel bad and feel stressed out. And I'm just sharing this because this is what I learned through the hard way. Like, I wasn't doing this, and I realized that if I want to have what I call a stay up, right? Everyone can have a startup. You can start up tomorrow. If you want to have a business that stays up, right? Then if you want to have a long-term business and you want to have longevity, then you can't burn out. You can't put yourself under a lot of pressure because it's just not healthy in the long run. So those are some of the strategies that I use.
Fantastic. Thank you. So the going from the startup to the stay up, that's the leap of thinking. What was your thinking from when you started your business to really going for it? Because it's easy to stay at the startup stage and plateau there for quite a few years, just pedaling and not really putting your heart and soul into the business, and then sort of complaining because you're not doing what you wanted to do. It's very easy to get into that thinking mode, blaming outside factors and all of that. So what was your leap in your thinking? What was a pivotal decision that you made that helped you to scale up your business?
Yeah, that's a good one, because I vividly remember, if I look maybe even just 12 years ago, what I defined as success or winning in business is totally different today. But it's important for you to define what that means. Now, obviously, you need to also remember that just the nature of the world and life, human beings, anything that's living, you're either growing or you're dying. There's no stasis. So if you're not growing, if you're not actively doing something to try to improve, even if it's just by 1% every day, even if it's just by one customer a day, even if it's just by one email sign up a day, right? If you're not improving, if not growing, then you're declining, and you're at risk at losing what you have now that you're so content about. And that's something that I realized quickly, because I started one of my first businesses was I was in a consulting business, and I used to help people build their websites and design their homepages and host their websites and all that kind of stuff. And I was content with that. I was paying the bills. It was just paying the bills, but it was kind of a well-oiled machine, and it was going okay. But as soon as there's any kind of friction or any kind of situation or a downturn in the economy, you're at risk, because you can't afford a low blow, right? You can't afford a loss. And that's when I realized, okay, wow, I'm not really allowing enough room for me to have some kind of buffer. And at the same time, I'm not growing constantly. I'm not growing as a business, but also I'm not growing as an entrepreneur. The way I see entrepreneurship is just like any other profession. You have to get better at your skills. You have to get better at making decisions, at innovating, at leading, at selling on and communicating what you're selling. Communication skills is the mother of all skills in business. So just like a surgeon works on their craft every single day in the surgery room, right, in an operating room, to get better and better and become a sought after surgeon, you need to do the same as an entrepreneur. It's just like any other profession. Same thing with a performer, like, an athlete or anything like that. Like, if they're just not getting better, if they're not working at their craft, or they're getting, overweight or something like that, then they're going to lose what they worked so hard to get. And that was kind of the mind shift for me, is defining the success, but understanding if I'm not growing, then I'm dying. And if I have to credit somebody, probably was some CD I got back in the day from Tony Robbins or something like that. And that line kind of just stuck in my head. And it kind of applies to business every day.
Yeah, that's so important. What about the listeners and viewers, who are running their own businesses and they're stuck in inaction? So they're feeling overwhelmed. They feel that nothing they do is working. Therefore, they're not doing things, or they're not focusing on the taking action in their business. That's actually going to move the needle. That's going to make a difference in their business, and they're fiddling around the edges.
That's so good. That's so important. That is so common, and it's not everybody experiences. I have experienced that. I still experience that at times. I have to catch myself. One of the things I love about uh, Bill Gates is that he has something called thinking days. He allots time to think. Okay, this guy's eradicating malaria. He's built an incredible business. He's speaking on stages. He's a busy guy, right? But he makes time to think. I know that sounds like a novel idea, but like the idea of just stepping away from the computer, stepping away from your notebook, put your phone away, and just spend time in your head and think. And I'm not talking about like read something and think. No, just be in your thoughts. Sometimes the best ideas, personally, my best ideas come when I'm on vacation, when I'm not thinking about work. My best solutions to my ideas happen when I had a good night's sleep. So all that is very important. I love that about Bill Gates because he prioritizes the idea that it's not just action that changes, it's the intentions behind the actions, it's the strategy behind the actions. And that doesn't happen out of thin air. It happens because I allow my brain to process all the ideas I'm getting, all the ideas, all the tips, all the strategies, all the podcasts I listen to, all the videos. We're getting fed all the time. I mean, if you're listening, have you ever been to a conference, right? A business conference or something like that, and you spent 3 days listening to lectures and things like that, and you feel incredibly overwhelmed because you didn't have a chance at the end of every day just to digest the information, to think about it, to question it. Do I agree with this? Does this fit with my business? How does it fit with my business? Because we've chock full of hours, networking, 9 to 9, and I really find it very overwhelming when you go to these conferences because there's no time to digest, and that's why you have that feeling. And you come back and you're like, I have no strategy because I didn't really get a chance to absorb anything. So the same thing goes on with your business. Every day you're doing, implementing. You hear a tactic here. Oh, let me try that. Let me try, this thing. I want to try that thing. I'm going to try this marketing strategy. I'm going to change my pricing, all that kind of stuff. And often we make all these quick decisions without realizing we didn't get a chance to think about the contingency and how it affects our business, or even if we want to do this, if this is aligned with our brand and with who we are and what kind of business we want to run. So practical advice here, something that you can do that's practically applicable. I think it's important to spend 20 minutes, just 20 minutes a day to have some thinking time. I personally just walk out of my office. I go to a park that's just like right by, sit on a bench. I look at the water, and I don't even take my phone with me. I just have my keys so I can get back. And that's it. Just 20 minutes. And I have no agenda. I could be thinking about a movie I saw last night or whatever. It doesn't matter. The point is that you are allowing your brain to process and think and allow yourself to kind of just digest what just happened throughout the day. And sometimes I do about 3/4 throughout the day. I mean, it just gives you a break too, get some fresh air. But the other thing I also recommend is instead of working through the weekend and working through holidays and all that kind of stuff, if you have to put in some hours on the weekend or work on a holiday, don't get on the computer. Spend some time to think. Spend some time to do some research on the decision you want to make. Recently, this is not that far, a few months ago, I did that. And the result totally pivoted our efforts in our whole business, because what we realized is that in the last 12 months, we were working so hard on fixing what's not working or things that we're not doing so well or trying to improve in areas that we're not so strong at. And we totally neglected what was working. We totally forgot to continue to do, or we were spending 100% of our efforts on let's try to get better here, and forgot the last 2 years we were doing XYZ. Those things are bringing in all our customers. And I looked at the data, and it's like, wow, 70% of our customers come from the thing that we were doing for 2 years straight, and we just stopped doing it. That's ridiculous, right? So it just allows you to think and give you a chance to research and make a decision instead of just acting upon every single piece of advice we get.
Yeah, it's the 80-20 principle, isn't it?
Yes.
we overlook something that's almost staring us in the face and spending all our efforts on something that's not going to bring in any clients or bring in any more income. And I love what you said about thinking, because we don't take time to think. I get my best ideas when I'm walking my dog in the middle of the day. That's when I'm just out there, not thinking about anything, not listening to anything, and everything's just pop in. So, but when we are thinking about things, it's easy to take our focus off how we can improve and what we can spend our time and focus on, and get into the thinking of beating ourselves up, that we're not doing things right, that other people are doing better than us. So it's and awareness is the key thing, isn't it? Awareness of our thinking, when it's taking us down a rabbit hole, when it's helping us. And I think this is the most challenging thing about being an entrepreneur, because often we're trying to fix things with our thinking and figure it out, and it's not helpful. We get a really, really muddled state of negative thinking. How do you pull yourself out of that so you can turn your thinking around to how you can create a better strategy for your business? How do you stop yourself from getting into that negative spiral of thinking?
So there's a few things. Number one, I think a lot of us as entrepreneurs, because we want to achieve so much, we look forward so much that we forget to look backwards. We forget to recognize that I've done some pretty cool things. I've accomplished a few amazing things in my life to get me to this point, to be in the position even to have a business or even to start a business. You know, to be able to start a business, you have to be in a pretty good situation. Okay. So we forget that. We forget that I got hired for a job at one point in my life, and I did well, and I got a promotion, and I got a raise, and I kept my job. I didn't get fired, right? All this stuff is like you may take for granted, but a lot of people can't do that. A lot of people are unable to hold a job, right? And then from there, I saved enough money to build my side hustle. And from my side hustle, I turned that to my full-time hustle. And then from there, I brought on some clients. Like, we forget to pat ourselves on the back and realize, I can do this. I've done it. I'm doing it, right? A lot of us, we just forget that. So it's good to look back and remind yourself all the accomplishments you've had to get to this point today. The other thing is, I know this word gets thrown around a lot, but it's very important in this moment, and it's the word gratitude. We often are ungrateful for the position we are. We're ungrateful to even have the problems we have. Not all problems are created equal. Right. I always say that, like, you're always going to have problems. Just try to upgrade your problems. Right. And that's really what we're trying to do in life. We have maybe financial problems. We solve that problem of making more money in our business. But now we have a problem where we are understaffed. So we got to hire more people. Good problem to have. It's an upgraded problem. Right. So a lot of us, we're not grateful for the position that we're in the first place. We're not grateful for the problems that we have. There are people that would die for our problems. They would die for the position that we're in. And I'm not talking about, unfortunately, there are people that are starving in the world that are in a very dire situation. I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about people that live around the block from you. I'm talking about people that are in your community, people that are your relatives. You know how many people that tell me, my own family, is, oh, I wish I could do what you're doing. And they say it in admiration, but also in a state of, they don't believe in themselves. You have at least gone to the point where you believe yourself to take a few leaps of faith. So have gratitude for what you have as a person, the skills you have, what you've done, and the position you're in. That will kind of hush the negative thoughts a little bit and hush the self-criticism. The third thing I'm going to say is a little bit, I hope people can interpret it the right way, but this for me unlocked a lot of things. If you study anybody that's great at anything, they're not playing a zero-sum game. They're not playing like there's only one winner in the world. There's only one winner in my marketplace. There's only one winner in my field, right? Anybody's like great at anything. Look at an athlete like Serena Williams. You look at somebody who's doing great in business. You see like somebody who had a great career in tech like Steve Jobs, whatever. You look at anybody. Look at anybody who has a perennial seller book, right? By the way, the book by Ryan Holiday, Perennial Seller, is amazing. And it illustrates this so much, where it's like, I'm not in the webinar game. I'm in the WebinarNinja game, right? That's my business. I'm trying to improve my business every day. I'm working against myself here. I'm trying to just be better than who I was yesterday. And all the people that are great at what they do have that mentality. They don't have the mentality of like, I'm looking over my shoulder at my competition. Am I better? How are they doing? What's their stock price? All that. They're not worried about that because they know that that's a distraction. They know that the more I look at my competition, the more I'm going to become like my competition. I'm not going to differentiate myself because I can't help myself. I keep going to their website. I'm going to start I'll start being influenced by their marketing and by their copy and by their language and by their colors and everything like that. So I really recommend that book, Perennial Seller, because it talks about what it takes to not be a one-hit wonder, to be something that continuously survives and continuously is a success. Regardless of the marketplace, regardless of how many competition people that compete with you or how many people join your marketplace and are your competition. So I just wanted to kind of, those are kind of three strategies that really helped me. But I definitely think that these are not things that you can just, okay, now that I know them, great, I'm golden. You have to remind yourself of these. Like I have to write these things down on a Post-it note, and I have to read them when I'm in that situation to remind myself, because otherwise I'm going to be a little bit flustered.
Yeah, and it's a daily reminder, isn't it? Because this is what life is all about. We're in the moment all the time, and we can easily just choose our thoughts in the moment. Is it our thoughts going to help us or are they going to hinder us? And that's a choice we're continually making. Thank you so much. You've just covered so much great content for us in such a short amount of time. Omar, how can our listeners and our viewers find out more about you and the tremendous work that you do?
Sure. I run a podcast called the $100 MBA Show. If you love podcasts, we have a daily business lesson. It's about a 15-minute business lesson on all sorts of things, no matter what stage you are in business. If you want to learn more or you want to learn more from me, that's a good place to go. Also, you can check out WebinarNinja.com if you're interested in doing webinars in your business, whether it's for sales or marketing, or whether it's for retention for your business, or whether we do it for our own team webinars and training and things like that. So you can check us out at WebinarNinja.com for that.
Fantastic. I listened to some of your episodes of your podcast. They're absolutely fantastic. And I would recommend everyone to go and check them out. Thank you so much for being here. It's been such a pleasure. I've really enjoyed spending this time with you. And thank you for sharing your wisdom and your expertise and how to have a really successful business. For everyone who's been watching and listening, thank you so much for joining us today. Till next time. Bye-bye for now.